Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I am so glad you're here. Today's guest is Tamara Zoner. Tamara, thank you so much for being here. Excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Marie.
So before we go any further, I've got to ask you, do you consider yourself ordinary or badass?
It's a great question. I consider myself an ordinary badass.
Nice. Tell me more. Tell me about that.
So I think that, we all have special and unique qualities about us, and we're all so similar that we're all kind of ordinary. And yet there's a backbone within us that we can access if we choose to. And it's in that backbone that we find our badassery, where we can step into situations where we might not want to have courage, but we can choose to have courage. And in those moments, as a parent, as a partner, as a coach, that's where I feel badass. Like when I'm really in a moment with someone and able to hold space for them without my own crap coming into play.
So have you always had that backbone?
I don't think so. I'm thinking of little Tamara. I was very shy. I was the third of 4 kids, and I was a peacemaker more than a badass. I wanted everybody to be okay and be happy and be quiet because it was kind of a loud, volatile household. And it took a long time. It took getting into my own discomfort to step into my badassery. Although I've spoken to friends from high school and they might disagree. But I felt like I was faking it then, and I'm fully living it now.
So is there anything like a series of events that happened that made you feel like a badass, or was it one thing?
It was definitely a series of events. I don't think there was there was a moment like that I can pinpoint when I decided to be a badass in my own life instead of taking stuff that I probably shouldn't have tolerated for many years. But then it was a sequence of events of me strengthening that backbone and stepping more fully into like, no, I own this. I am a strong, powerful, badass woman, and I don't have to take any crap anymore. So it took me deciding to leave a 16-year marriage to a very charming, handsome, intelligent Frenchman who also was extremely controlling and manipulating and emotionally abusive, to have this moment where I realized I didn't have to take it anymore and I could make new decisions. I felt very badass and scared, but very badass in that moment.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to say, how did you feel, or what did it do for you once you made that decision to leave?
When you're peeling a hard-boiled egg and it just sort of, the shell just will rip away. That's kind of how I felt. Like I was breaking out of this shell that had been broken for so long, but now I was free to breathe the air, to make my own choices, to laugh loudly because that wasn't like okay, to sing loudly, to be just who I am. And it wasn't necessarily easy and it didn't happen all at once, but it really was like this, I've just gotten out of this thing that's been holding me inside, and now I'm free. Now I'm free. What can I do?
I love that analogy with the shell on the hard-boiled egg, because it just kind of really puts in our head what exactly you're talking about and how you felt. So that's amazing.
Thank you. And that's the first time I've ever used that analogy. It just came to
Oh,
me.
that's funny. You'll have to keep it.
I will.
So I can't wait to dig in. This is going to be so good. But first, will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Hold on one second. Okay. A little bit about me. I am a lover of life, an adventurer, a free spirit, but a Capricorn. So I also love structure. And I have dogs and cats and fish and kids. um, and I am also a coach. So I support people who are struggling in transition, whatever big change is happening for them in their lives, it's not going that well. And I hold them in that space so that they can create deeper relationships with themselves and therefore others, and then create lives they love.
Okay, so you talked about this idea of people that are struggling in transition. What is a common problem that your clients have that they're coming to you with?
So most of my clients are either fresh out of divorce or going through divorce, or maybe they're empty nesters, or they've just moved to a new area and they feel like they have to start all over. So this is a big theme. They feel like they have to start all over. What do I do now? I've been a mom for 20 years and now all my kids are grown and gone to college and living their own lives. Or I've been married for 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years and suddenly I'm single. I don't know how to live this life. Or here I am in this brand new place, new job. Most likely that's what's bringing people here. Or they've moved home like I did. And they just really don't know how to pick the pieces back up and create a new life for themselves. And so I'm really great at that. I've done it a few times. And so I support them in that. And I support them in defining and getting clear on what they want life to look and feel like now. And then I teach them how to align their lives, their choices, their decisions with their ideal life so that every day can become more joyful and fulfilling. And before they know it, usually in about 6 months to a year, they're living a life happier than they've ever felt.
So I imagine that when you're starting something new or you feel like you have to start all over, it can be overwhelming. What is, let's say, divorce, since that's something that's common, what is the first step you tell people to take when they're going through a divorce and they feel like everything is starting all over and everything's new?
The first thing that I invite people to do is to start taking better care of themselves, to taking time to breathe and allow themselves to feel what they feel. A lot of us really strongly resist feeling anything that we perceive as bad, or negative. And the invitation that I give them is to simply have their experience and allow those emotions to be released. And I like to say, if you ignore it, you store it. But if you feel it, you heal it. So when we're ignoring and resisting all of those big, heavy feeling emotions, we're actually just putting them, we're sweeping them under the rug, storing them for later attention, because they're going to get louder if we don't allow them. And they'll want our attention and they'll make it known through depression or disease or anger or whatnot. And so I say, just let yourself feel them, because as we feel them, if we're willing to just be in the experience and the sensation and the tears, then it moves through us and releases. And sometimes that's an over and over process, but it gets lighter and brighter each time that we allow those feelings to come up and go out.
So this idea of feeling it, I will be honest, I have struggled with this at times. I think that in today's culture, it's so easy to be like, okay, I felt it. It should be gone. It should be out of here, and you just expect it to move on because you gave it 30 minutes or, you gave it some time. What do you say to that?
First of all, should is the only 4-letter word that is in my vocabulary. So I try not to use it. And I encourage people to just wipe it off of their brain. Should is a bad word because when we're arguing with reality, as Byron Katie says, we lose and only 100% of the time. So what I say is we feel until we feel complete in the feeling, and it just might come back. There are layers of emotional storage that come back up and rise so we can clear it on deeper levels, especially when we're talking about divorce or grief, which is a grieving, divorce is a grieving period and process. And if you don't know that, if you haven't identified that as a listener, that divorce is something to grieve, whether you're the one leaving or the one being left, like there's a lot of emotion there. And so there's a whole 7-step process that I take my clients through in learning how to allow their feelings. And we call it nature's guidance system. We're like nature. We expand and we contract, and we expand and we contract, just like the flowers that bloom and then close, every day, or the sun rises and then it sets, winter and then spring is this beautiful expansion. And we're just like that. So if we can think about our emotions and feelings in that same natural way and take some of the judgment out, it makes the process of feeling a little bit easier. And the invitation is first to just become aware of what you're feeling and to choose to give it a voice and allow it and to breathe into it instead of try to run away from it. And so every time you're like, oh, well, I'm done now, I did that. Is it done? You're probably going to have to come back to it until it's fully expressed, fully released. And so I invite people to just be aware. Here's what I will say to people who are like, but what do I do if I'm in the middle of teaching, or I'm in the middle of, presenting, or something where I can't, something's come up for me and I'm feeling, but I don't have time for that right now. Then I say, okay. And I do this too. Put it up on a shelf where you can see so that it's there. And you say, okay, feelings, I'm going to come back to you. I know you're there. I know I need to deal with you. And right now I don't have the time or the space, or maybe even the bandwidth or the energy, but I'm not going to put you away in the cupboard where I can't see you. I'm going to leave you out on the shelf. So I remember that I need to make the time for myself to feel it. And if you have trouble accessing emotion, well, there are all sorts of triggers, watch a sad movie, or start journaling, or get into your body with dance or movement, or a good walk or swimming, whatever works for you to actually feel your body again. Because often when we're resisting feeling our feelings, we're also resisting really being aware of anything in our body. We're completely here in our heads and thinking and thinking and thinking, and maybe distracting ourselves through movies or podcasts even. But podcasts like this often will get us into feeling. So that's a good trigger. But that's it. You got to keep coming back to it with just a choice, a conscious choice of, okay, this could come back, or this will come back, or I've processed a little and that's enough for now. And to be okay with that. So this is compassion for self, is to say, you know what? I've felt that for enough right now. Like, that's enough for now. I need a break. And take a breath into that.
Yeah, I like how you said to put it on a shelf and leave it there for a little bit and not put it like in a cupboard or a cabinet. So recently we had Dr. Annette Copeland on the Ordinary to Badass podcast, and she said that she schedules time for it. Like when she feels fear or anxiety, she'll put it in her calendar, like, okay, tomorrow, like when she's ready to go to bed, and she feels that anxiety or thoughts racing, tomorrow at such and such time, I will feel my feelings. And so if you get a reminder on your phone, it can help you, but then also it helps from shoving it away or just ignoring it and not ever circling back to it.
I love that. That is so good. And you can even, for some clients or even friends, I'll invite them to take it on a date, go have tea, have coffee. And by going, I mean like in your own kitchen, so that you can cry your eyes out and not feel silly or embarrassed. You just go have a cup of tea with that feeling, that anxiety or that fear or that sadness or that grief, and just ask it. This is the give it a voice part. Like, what do you need from me? And what are you giving me? What's the message here? What do we need to do with this, if anything? Or do you just need to be seen and heard, right? If we think of it like a child who wants our attention, and they keep tugging at us and tugging at us and tugging at us, like, hey, pay attention to me. Hey, but I have something to say. If we just would be willing to stop for 30 seconds and say, what do you need? then they tell us, and then they run off and play again. Instead, we waste a lot of time trying to ignore it and be like, just a minute, I'll get to you later. When if we could just go and dig in for 30 seconds or 5 minutes, 20 if you have some luxury of time, then, and be gentle with it and be kind to the feeling and just welcome whatever it has to share with you. And it might sound a little funny and a little weird, but it really, I've had people who've done it. They're like, yeah, I took my grief on a date and we had tea and we talked and I feel so much better.
Nice. It's like, share that with you, share that with your therapist. Somebody else might not understand it.
Yes, but you know what? And that's why I love tools. I love to create a toolbox for my clients of different tools and techniques because it's not all, one size fits all. Different tools work for different people. And some are like, what? Take it to T. I don't think so. But they might love EFT, tapping, emotional freedom technique, or they might just love journaling. So there are different ways to give that feeling a voice. The key, though, is to choose to return to it if you have the awareness that you're avoiding it.
So will you expand on that idea a little bit? You're talking about how like different things work for different people. I think that people think like, oh, I've got to meditate. That's what so-and-so is doing, or I got to do this one thing. And if they don't, they feel like, oh, I'm a horrible human being, or this just is everything isn't for me. Will you expand on that?
Sure. So there are like thousands of different types of healthcare, doctors, teaching, majors in college. Everything isn't for everyone. And if we can look at yoga, for instance, so, okay, yoga's great. Yoga's really good for you. You should do yoga. It'll work for you. Well, maybe you hate yoga. Maybe you've tried it. I always say try it at least a few times before you decide you love or hate something. Maybe you're like, I don't like bending that way. I don't like holding poses. And maybe that's a reason to keep doing it. Or maybe you prefer to take a walk. Maybe that's your physical exercise. Whatever works for you is okay. So anybody who's telling you you should do this will work for you, is not a person that I would suggest actually taking advice from. Instead, try on the things until you find one that fits. Just like our clothes, right? I can't wear the same size as my 17-year-old daughter, though some of our cardigans are interchangeable. But her trousers, her pants are way too small for me. So if somebody says you should wear that outfit, what are you talking about? It's so easy in these concrete ways to go, no, I shouldn't. No, that's not for me. But when it comes to therapy or a coach or a type of exercise or a diet, you should do this because it worked for me. That's what people are really telling us. It worked for me, so I think it will work for you. In fact, we're all unique and different. We're all different kinds of badasses. And you've got to be willing to try different things in different ways until you find the one that works. And that even goes for therapists, right? I know for us in my family, my daughter's in therapy for anxiety. And we've gone through 6 in 2 years before we found one that was a good fit. So it wasn't therapy that wasn't the right tool. It was the provider of the therapy that wasn't the right fit for her. And so open the mind to trying on different things, knowing that no one thing is right and no one thing is wrong, because if it were, we'd all be doing the exact same thing all of the time.
So when your daughter went to therapy, did she go to each therapist 3 times, or was it something she knew right away?
Let me think through. Even the one that we thought was the flakiest, that we knew for sure, or we thought, like, I'm not really sure she's going to be a good one, we went to 3 times. And then we made that decision. We're like, no, it's not a fit. It's not a fit. So give it 3 times. Like, that's even what my rule is at the dinner table. Try something. Give it 3 bites. until you decide if you like it or not, or you're willing to eat more, or you're not willing at all to try it again. 3 times is a good measure of, okay, I can lean in a little bit and see. And then if it's a no, it's a no, but move on to something or someone different.
Yeah, I like that idea of doing things 3 times. I'll say when I did, well, both martial arts and yoga, awkward, 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 horrible at them. And so often we get in our head and we think like, oh, I suck at this. I can't do this, which I don't know where that comes from. It's like we expect children to learn and grow, and then as an adult, we think we just have to know it all.
Right. As if we were good at everything the first time we did it, and we were not. I often will tell my kids and my clients, you know what? Remember when you were a baby? And no, they don't. You took a first step and then you fell down, but you got back up. And we have this resiliency early on that we start to lose as we get older, because we start to get used to things and we start to have preferences. But if we can just remember, or think about remembering, like, oh yeah, when I first learned this, it felt hard and now I'm great at it, like tying your shoes, or even jumping rope, or making your favorite meal if you cook. When the first time you did it, you were unsure, insecure, I don't know how it's going to turn out, but you were okay with that because you were new. Well, if feeling your feelings is new for you, or feeling them in this way, or using different tools to process them is new, it's just the first time. You're just new at it. You're not bad at it. You've never done it before.
Right, right. Which, as you were talking, I was thinking, when we're growing up, it's like we have our personal cheerleaders, which is our parents, right? And everybody doesn't necessarily have that, but, usually parents are cheering you on or helping you. And then it's like once you're out of the house, you don't necessarily have somebody pushing you to do those things or cheering you on all the time. But that can be the importance of having a coach, somebody who's in your corner.
Absolutely. A coach, a great friend, a circle of people who can support you and call you on your BS, and lovingly, and help you move forward in that. It's so important. But a coach is amazing obviously I'm a coach. I love coaching and I love what coaches provide for people, which is so different from therapy. Therapy looks back, of course it helps you develop coaching, like coping skills and management skills of your behavior and your mind and whatnot. But coaching looks forward. Like, what are we, especially the kind I do, not every coach maybe does this way, but I say, what do you want your life to look and feel like? So here's how we move forward. And we have that, not so much a goal in mind, but a way of being in mind. I want to wake up happy. I want to feel relaxed and peaceful. I want to communicate clearly with my family, communicate calmly and clearly with my family. It's a goal, but it's a way of being, of showing up in your life. And that's what we work towards. So we examine the choices and decisions that you're making. And I, as a coach and coaches, hold people accountable, right? So how did this go for you this last week? Why do you think you made that choice instead of this choice? Did that support your vision for your life? Did it not? Okay, what do we do now? Like, let's examine that, and then we can go into it on a deeper level. But having that accountability is really helpful in making lasting change in your life.
So we have this vision, we have this destination that we want to end up at, but we don't know how to get there. What's something people can do to start making decisions to move that way?
The first thing that I do with clients is I help them clarify what they want that life to look and feel like. So we work through a process called the passion test, which is where we identify 10 to 12 things that we want to be, do, feel, or have in our lives. And then through a process of very specific questioning, I get them down to their top 5. And so that's the vision. That's the goal. And then I share with them the secret, which I'll share with you and your audience. The secret to actually creating that life is to choose in favor of those passions or those priorities every single time you're faced with a choice, a decision, or an opportunity. And if you don't, and you catch yourself, then have some compassion. And then there's a practice of self-forgiveness, like, oops, I messed up. So when I was still married, I was very angry. And it took me a minute because I was so avoidant of my feelings, of my reality, just to get through each day, that I didn't realize why I was so angry until I started doing more personal development work and getting into therapy and working with a coach, and realized, oh, I'm really mad at my husband. I'm very angry with my husband, but because he was the bigger person, I took it out on my kids. And I hated that because my mom was a yeller. I never wanted to be like my mom. And so my kids were very little at the time. And so I started going deeper, and I made a decision that I wanted to stop yelling at my kids. And I got support in that. And then I kept, like, I'd get better and better. I'd go a few days without yelling at them, but then it would happen again. And I learned I needed to tweak my language and tweak what I was paying attention to, which was the yelling. And so I started saying, I speak with loving kindness to my children, what I actually wanted instead of what I didn't want. And that's really the first piece for people. Most of us know what we don't want, but then we keep creating that because that's what we're putting our attention on. And what we put our attention on grows stronger in our lives, right? If I'm searching for a brand new red Fiat, then I'm going to start seeing them. It's the effect of the brain, and I forget what it's called, but there's an effect. And if I focus on the yelling, it's going to keep coming up. If I focus on speaking with loving kindness, oh, well, that's a totally different feeling in my body, thought in my mind, and expression with my children. And what happened is, as I focused on that more and more, is I did stop yelling. And I spoke with loving kindness. And now my kids are teenagers and they don't even remember that angry yelling mom. And we have these beautiful relationships. And I don't know how many moms of 17, 16, and 13-year-olds can say that their kids would choose to hang out with them over anybody else.
Right.
That's what we do. So you have this goal and you have to simply keep choosing in favor of it, but you first have to be clear on what it is. And it's not necessarily, when we say a goal, I say passions or priorities. It's really this way of being that I want my life. And it's this that I've clearly identified, or something even better, so that I make space for something even better to show up.
So sometimes we block off our passions or we numb them, like with TV, with alcohol, with whatever. It's like it just feels so hard to reach the things that we want to. So we just numb them. And it can be hard to get back into figuring them out. Or sometimes you're like, I don't have any passions. What would you say to that person?
Everybody does. And the first question I invite you to ask yourself, if you say, I don't have any passions, is, well, what did you love when you were younger? What lit you up? What makes you feel alive? And if you can't access that today, what made you feel alive when you were a kid? You know, maybe you loved playing in the dirt or climbing trees, so you love nature. So get out in nature and try that on. But there's an exercise I'll do in workshops where we do, for a whole minute, complete this sentence. What makes me feel alive is, and I have partners go back and forth because we inspire each other, right? We inspire each other. Someone might say, oh, dancing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I love dancing. What makes me feel alive is dancing. What makes me feel alive is karaoke. What makes me feel alive is being on the lake and watching the ripples of the water, or laughing with my children. And so you have a passion in your heart, whether you remember it or not. And a lot of us, especially between the ages of 30 and 50, are in the height of our responsibilities as human beings. We have families, careers, jobs, we've mortgages, and we feel like we just have to do all these things. But the one thing that I can guarantee is that all of those things will feel easier when you're also accessing what lights you up and playing in your life a little bit more, doing the things that you love and that light you up a little more. The rest gets easier when you're tapping into joy.
Yes. And I like how you said they go back, like your participants go back and forth and say, what makes me feel alive is this. And then the other one comes up with something else. And I think that's the importance of having like a girl gang or having like the
Yes.
people around you that can inspire you. And because so often we're intimidated by saying our dreams out loud or by saying what excites us. And I don't necessarily know why that is.
I have an idea.
Yeah, go for it.
We are socialized, and in this culture specifically, to not love our lives. Everybody complains, and we get into this competition of who's got it worse instead of who's got it great. And then when we do start to have it really good, we feel guilty. So we don't want to tell it. But what I say is, if you're experiencing a life that other people might envy, I put that in quotes for listeners, envy, it's really because that's what you'd like too. So there's another, I love all sorts of quotes. There's another quote that my own coach uses, and she says, bless that which you want. So if I see someone else like having that beautiful relationship, they're laughing, they're walking, they're holding hands, it's PDA all over the place, and I love that. Then instead of being like, oh, go get a room, that's awful. Because in my heart, I'm like, I want that. But it's easier to complain about it. Then instead, I look at that and go, oh, this exists in the world. That means it's possible for me. That's possible for me. I love that. I love that for them. I love that that exists in the world. Good for them. Maybe one day I can have it too. And so if we can start to switch the complaining, the blaming, the self-shaming, and we can start to have a little gratitude, a little excitement. And this is a practice. It's not just a switch you flip. It's a practice that you practice. And you start looking for the good and how you could even start to take more responsibility for your happiness and how you could even share the good parts of your life. And maybe, just maybe, you'll inspire someone to take a chance on being happy too. And that's what I see over and over is if I'm willing to be a badass and say, hey, I am one of the happiest people I know. Whereas a few years ago, even 5 years ago, I might have felt like that was bragging, which has a bad rap. Or it was inappropriate because other people were hungry or had just lost their jobs. And I'm going, oh, it's amazing. Instead of feeling guilty about that, be grateful and give others just by your presence and the way that you're in your life and loving it, give them permission to do the same. If you're a badass, I have permission to be a badass. And isn't that cool?
Yes. And I bet like your friend circle started to step out of their comfort zone and do other things too, which is cool to like inspire other people, but then also like to see other people like on the same path you are. That's fun.
It's so fun. It's so fun when we get out of that comparative complaining piece and we move into like, oh, I know a guy who just got to fly on a private jet, and he got to fly his whole family around because he's worked hard in his life, in his career, and he's earned it. And not that he has to earn it, like who doesn't deserve to fly on a private jet? I don't know. Everybody does. It's super fun, but it takes a lot of money. So if you've gotten to that level, that is something to be so proud of. And yes, you do get to shout it from the rooftops. You really do, because what we're telling people who are watching is that it's possible for them too. We're never stuck unless we think we are.
Yes. So good. So
Yeah.
I would like to pivot a little bit. So often people come on the show or we see social media and we think, oh, everything is all gumdrops and lollipops. Tamara has it all figured out, but I could never be that way. Will you share like a hardship that you've been through to get to where you are today?
Oh, sure. I go through them all the time. The biggest one for me was the divorce. And it was after, I could say too many years of staying in that relationship and being treated that way. But I won't shut on myself anymore. I didn't leave at 7 years when I first thought about it. I stayed for another 8 years and was legally married 16 years. Should I have done it differently? No, because I didn't. But when I finally did step into what I really wanted and decide to leave the marriage, I took baby steps back into being who I am. It was hard. I had 3 children. I still have 3 children, thank God. I didn't want to be a single mom. I hadn't really worked. I'd done freelance stuff here and there. I didn't know how I would support them. I didn't know how I would feed them. So one major hardship was, sucking it up a little bit and asking my parents for help. And my kids and I actually moved back home to my childhood home, where we stayed for a bit. We stayed for several years. We ended up renovating the house and such. So that was one massive hardship that has changed who I am and how I show up in my life, because I was out of integrity for so long that I've made this personal promise to myself to never do that again. And so I live with a very big awareness about my integrity and how I'm feeling in what I'm doing in my life. And are my words matching my actions? And am I walking my talk in my teaching as well? Because as a coach, I do a lot of teaching. And am I, when I'm teaching somebody the 7 skills, the 7 main areas and skills and habits of happiness, am I actually living that? And if I'm not, I feel like the discord in my body. And so I step back onto the path. And that's a regular hardship, right? As a parent, holy cow, there are some hardships. I don't know if you're a parent, Marie, but it is hard. It can feel really hard. And I have one trans child, and I have one child who is diagnosed depressive and anxiety disorder. And every panic attack, it's a hardship. Every time I have to choose between a family member that I love who doesn't and won't respect the pronouns and the name of my trans son, that's a hardship. So life's full of them, big and little. And that's just a fact of life. That is this human experience. And if we take a broader spiritual perspective, which I choose to, it's what I chose, right? I chose this life. I chose this growth. I chose these opportunities for living and learning and experiencing this human full range of emotions, full range of love and grief and joy and sadness and anger and calm and peace. We get to have it all. And if I can just keep remembering that, then every hardship is worth it. And with that in mind, don't go straight to the silver lining. Be sure to experience what you feel in the moment of that hardship. Like when my oldest has a panic attack and I honestly feel helpless. I don't know what to do. I want to fix it for her. I want to hold her. I want to make sure she knows she's safe and lovable. But that's not my journey. In fact, that's not my job. My job is just to be a stable presence for her in that moment. And if she says, "Go away, mom, I'll be better without you," that freaking hurts. And I do it anyway, because I have to also practice trusting her to know what she needs.
Yeah, I think that's so hard to not just like jump right in and get in there and try to fix everything for your kids. What do you do to remind yourself to give them the space when they need it, or to let them process their own feelings?
I have a reminder to myself that we each have our own journey. She's on her own journey. It's not the same as mine. We're part of each other's journey. But if I jump in and fix and change things for her, how does she learn? How does she go about living her own life and feeling like she's capable of it if mom's always jumped in to take care of it for her? She'll never feel capable. So I remind myself constantly, okay, and I'll ask the question, like, what's mine and what's hers? What's mine and what's hers? Okay, it's my job to deal with my own emotions that come up and the scared feelings that come up when I feel a lack of control. And I get to identify that. That's why this practice of awareness is so important. Oh, I'm scared right now. This is why I feel angry, because it's really fear, because I can't control things. So then I use my tools. I use my tools of breath work or EFT or yoga. I use the tools that work for me. And that's why I am such a proponent of self-care. It's not girls' nights necessarily, or even getting the kitchen clean, but what do you need? How do you need to care for yourself to show up for other people in your life in a capacity of service that actually serves, instead of taking away from them their ability to show up for themselves?
Yes. And I liked what's mine and what's hers. It's like that can be used not just with your children, but in other relationships in your life, because we take on so much for other people. I think that could be really helpful. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. It's especially helpful if you identify as an empath. To say, wait, is that mine or is that theirs? Oh, okay, I'm clear. This is not mine. I'm okay.
Nice. So let's end with a tip to encourage women who are in the arena fighting for the life that they want.
I love this. One tip is to, instead of fighting for it necessarily, I would say love for it and live for it. Choose the life you want, get clear on what that is, and then choose in favor of it each and every day with love, with badassery.
So good. And how can we connect with you?
My name's pretty unique. So you can Google Tamara Zoner, or you can visit tamarazoner.com. And I show up a lot on Facebook, often on Instagram. And I have a podcast called Spirit Cafe, where we have conversations to perk up your soul. And you can find that anywhere you stream your podcast, and on YouTube if you prefer watching faces.
Thank you so much, Tamara. You've been a total badass, and I've enjoyed hearing your story.
Thank you, Marie. It's been a pleasure.
And with that, we'll end our show. All the badass women out there in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass, and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.